Good morning. It is the 15th of September. We are rushing rapidly through September and towards the end of the year. My name is Kyle. This is the AI with Kyle daily news and update show, bringing you the newest in what's happening in the world of artificial intelligence. A couple of things that we're going to be covering. First thing first, ChatGPT. They added in an ability to synchronize with your Gmail account. That has been, and I thought this would happen, broken open, so your privacy is no longer protected. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the new AirPod Pros, which I do not have yet. I've got the old ones here, but I'm going to be buying some of the new ones. There is a delay in the simultaneous translation capability, which I'll talk about, which is an AI capability, which will not be available in the EU, at least initially, but we'll have a look at that. Then I want to talk about Google, some interesting stuff about Google and whether Google is going to be the people who win moving forward in the AI competition, because it is a race, it's a competition. Then we're going to talk about Demis Hassabis. He did a talk, very awesome, talking to the Greek Prime Minister, and I think they were sitting inside of the Odeon inside in Athens, so very, very cool. And then we're going to talk generally about AI skills, what skills you need moving forward, because Demis started talking about, well, he touched on those issues and I wanted to follow up on them too. And then finally, oops, got rid of it, but well, we were going to talk about empathy and emotion in medical. There we go, I've got it back, we can. Doctors' use of empathic AI to help reduce physicians' empathy fatigue. So we'll talk about that as well, because I managed to get that back. Also, for anyone on TikTok, tomorrow I'm going to have you in a better position because I've got a new clamp that I'm going to clamp you to the other camera, but this is far too complex for me to work out right now, so we just have to wait until tomorrow. Cool. And as always, I'm going to be taking questions live as we go through the various different news segments. So I'll do news, question, etc. And you can find all of these videos over on YouTube. YouTube is finally accelerating. If you've been watching my live shows or listening, you know I've been complaining about this. The rate of YouTube growth is incredibly slow, not just for me. This is across the board. It's a very hard platform to crack. And in the last few days, over the weekend, basically, suddenly it's hockey sticked and we're off to the races. So thank you guys for your support. If you're not subscribed on YouTube yet, it's over on YouTube. If you look at my username, I am Kyle Balmer, my name, you'll be able to find me there and subscribe. And there's also a free newsletter which comes out every single day, which is a summary of what's been covered in the live. Okay, that's enough preamble. That's enough me yapping. I've been told that I need to work out a nice smooth intro flow. As you can tell, I haven't done that yet. So it's just me yapping. Okay, first up, let's have a look at ChatGPT, because this is a bit worrying, especially if you are using this feature. So about a month ago, I want to say, ChatGPT added the ability to synchronize with basically your Google ecosystem. So you could give it access to your Google Calendar, your Google Workspace, your Google Meets, I think, or Hangout, or whatever they call it now, I always forget, and Gmail. And the idea here was you can finally give an AI access to everything that it needs to know so that it can become a fully fledged assistant, which is a really cool idea, being able to talk to an AI and it being to organize meetings, being able to notice conflicts, being able to pull in information from emails and kind of help you to make decisions based on that. A really cool idea, and that's definitely where we're going to be heading. However, ChatGPT or OpenAI, they kind of released this feature without much fanfare, saying, oh, by the way, you can now connect your ChatGPT account to Gmail. Have fun. And that was kind of it. And I remember at the time looking through it like, ooh, how safe is this? How much privacy, how much protection is in play? And I remember a few weeks ago saying I would wait and see. I would not connect my Gmail account, and I haven't yet for this reason, because I don't know how safe this is going to be. And lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, this is Eito Miyamura, sorry, I'm butchering your name, I don't speak Japanese, who looks like a Japanese, British-based, or British-Japanese hacker? Ethical security tester? Basically saying, we got ChatGPT to leak your private email data. All you need is the victim's email address. So on Wednesday, OpenAI added full support for MCP tools in ChatGPT, allowing ChatGPT to connect and read your Gmail, calendar, SharePoint, Notion, and more. Invented by Anthropic AI, yeah. But here's the fundamental problem. AI agents like ChatGPT follow your commands, not your common sense. With just your email, we managed to exfiltrate all of your private information. Here's how we did it. So the attacker sends a calendar invite with the jailbreak prompt to the victim with just their email. So if I was targeting you, I'd send you a calendar invite and it would have a prompt embedded in it, and I'd send that to your email address. No need for the victim to accept the invite. Ooh, okay, so it doesn't require any mistake on the recipient's behalf. Scary. 2, waited for the user to ask ChatGPT to prepare for their day by looking at their calendar. So unrelated to this, they haven't accepted the invitation. They might not even know they got it. So they've just said, hey, can you look at my calendar and help me? 3, ChatGPT reads the jailbroken calendar invite. Now ChatGPT is hijacked by the attacker and will act on the attacker's command, searches your private emails and sends the data to the attacker's email. Wow, that's really simple. Yikes. So for now, OpenAI only made MCPs available in developer mode and requires manual human approvals for each session, but decision fatigue is a real thing, and the normal people will just trust the AI without knowing what to do. Click approve, approve, approve. Yes, 100% they will. Remember that AI may be super smart, but it can be tricked and phished in incredibly dumb ways to leak your data. So ChatGPT plus tools poses a serious security risk. So very briefly again, this is not complex. This is not a complex hack or anything like that. This is, if I am trying to get your data, I am going to send you a calendar invite with your email address. That's all I need, just your email address. You do not need to see, you do not need to accept, you do not need to act in any way on that calendar invite. That's just landed, and there's no real way to kind of stop that from landing in your calendar, and that's just going to sit there pending. Now, if you are using ChatGPT to manage your calendar, or it's connected in some way, and you go ahead and say, hey, ChatGPT, help me organize my week, help me organize my day. ChatGPT is going to go in and it's going to read that calendar invite. Whether or not you've accepted it, whether you've acted on it, it does not matter. ChatGPT is going to read that invite to see what's going on that day, what you've been invited to, and by doing so, it's going to read that malicious prompt. That prompt is going to tell ChatGPT to send information back to me, the attacker. So yeah, ChatGPT will read the jailbroken calendar invite, and it's hijacked by the attacker, and will act on the attacker's command. So whatever prompt I've put in there, like, hey, send me their invoices, send me their, search their email for a photo of their passport, send it over, whatever it is, it will act on that behalf. And it says jailbroken calendar invite, but this is literally just putting a prompt into a calendar invite. And I don't even know how sophisticated that prompt has to be. So there's a whole tutorial of how this works. I will not play it out loud because I don't know how that works, my sound. But well worth going and checking out. This was discovered a couple of days ago and is getting good 1.3 million views. So it's getting the attention it needs because this is a huge problem. So if you have connected your ChatGPT to your Google Calendar and your Gmail, you might want to sever that connection for now while we work out what is going on, because this is problematic. It doesn't mean this would be a widespread attack, but now this is in the open, people know about this, it's a risk. So yeah, I would go ahead and disconnect them for now and then pay attention to what's going on, and we'll have an update hopefully soon. Oops. So hopefully that's a useful public service announcement for anyone who did connect up their AI. And remember, as Aito says, it's not the AIs that are particularly stupid. The AI is just following instructions, but the instructions that have been injected into it by this calendar invite are going to cause it to act against you. Just scrolling through. Oh, lots of questions. It's a busy Monday morning. You guys are... Hey, Kyle, from the Philippines here. Hey, how you doing, Shane? My editor, Mark, is in the Philippines. Not sure where. And I've worked with people who were on Cebu before. And actually one of my good friends here who you might know, Shen Solon, who runs Launch Lemonade, is a Filipino founder as well. I keep telling her to take me out for ubi pie. I need to chase her up about that. I learned prompt engineering from you. Thanks so much for your content. Very, very welcome, Shane. I'm glad it was helpful. Fans World, I use your Risen framework all the time. Thank you. Risen framework, which is... You probably notice I can't really say my R's very well. Like I say my R's, it sounds more like a W. It's just a bit of a small speech impediment, which is a problem considering how much I talk. But unfortunately, I went with Risen as the framework. So it's so when I say it, it sounds like Wizen. Like, of all the words, when it was written down, it's fine. But then I started to do video. I started to do lives. I started to get on stage and teach it in workshops. It's like, oh, damn. It's the worst possible word for me. Right, cool. Yes, good to see you guys. Right, next one up is the AirPods Live translation block. So I actually misspoke. I put a video out last week saying at the announcement, the Apple announcement, and they basically didn't talk about Apple Intelligence. They didn't talk about AI, which is mostly true. They didn't. It's been kind of pushed down, whereas last year it was all AI this, we're going to do this with AI, it's going to be so exciting, we're going to lead the way of AI. And then Apple realized, like, oh no, we're a long way behind and people don't want this. So this last announcement, which was, when was it? Last Thursday? Last Friday? Something like that, last week. They really didn't talk about AI much. They talked about the telephones. And I put out a video saying that they didn't mention it at all. That's not quite true. So I was wrong there. The AirPods are going to have a new Apple Intelligence feature which will allow for simultaneous translation between, I believe it's 5 different languages. Let me check which language. I mean, it's French, German, Spanish, English. Here we go. French, German, Portuguese, Spanish, German, and English. Okay. Apple plans to add Italian, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese simplified support later this year. However, there is a problem, which is AirPod Live translations are blocked for EU users. So if you are in the EU and you have an EU Apple account, then you will not get this feature. So strict EU regulations against AI, the EU AI Act will hold back the rollout of this, basically. So Apple says on its feature availability webpage that Apple Intelligence live translation with AirPods won't be available if both the user is physically in the EU and their Apple account region is in the EU. Apple doesn't give a reason for the restriction, but legal and regulatory pressures seem like the most plausible option. Culprit, yes. In particular, the EU's Artificial Intelligence Act and General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, both impose strict requirements on how speech and translation services are offered. Regulators may want to study how live translation works and how that impacts privacy, consent, data flow, and user rights. Apple will also want to ensure its system fully complies with these rules before enabling the feature across the EU accounts. Live translation feature unveiled during its AirPods Pro 3 announcement is also coming to older models. That's cool, including the AirPods 4 with active noise cancellation and AirPods Pro 2. I don't know what I have. I have no idea what these are. Is there a way to check? I'll look that up later. I'm not going to do that live on stream. So that's a bit of a bummer if you're in the EU. It's also, the languages are French, German, Portuguese, and Spanish. So this is really useful in the EU, where there are actually lots of different countries that speak lots of different languages. So one of the best places for this technology is inside Europe. And unfortunately, this is going to be blocked, which is a pity. And we will see whether this is a full block or just a delay. So what's happened with a lot of AI technology is that it will just be delayed by a few months. So I'm thinking with ChatGPT, the advanced voice mode, was it advanced voice mode or standard voice mode? One of them was delayed by a few months in the EU and in the UK, because the UK at the moment, in lieu of having our own kind of AI regulations in place, are generally just following the EU right now. So I think what will happen with this is that it probably will be allowed in the UK, because I'm not seeing any. It doesn't seem like Apple are slowing down their rollout here, but we'll find out very, very shortly. This week, I think. Yep, this week. Because this is one thing that I'm very excited about. This is, for any of you who know The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, this is the idea of the Babel fish, a fish that lives inside of your ear and it can translate between alien languages. We're getting close to it. Whether or not this is going to be a good implementation, I'm not sure, because it is Apple and it's based on Apple Intelligence, and it might be terrible. And I've seen a lot of memes about this, about somebody saying hola and then it coming out as toaster in English, because we don't know. Well, I mean, Siri has been terrible for years and Apple Intelligence has been a bit of a bust. So this could be hilariously bad, and we'll find out this week. But if it works, and I don't see why it shouldn't if you put a decent LLM behind it, then this could be really cool for traveling and being able to talk to people around the world without, without boundaries, simultaneous translation. I wonder too if the EU hires a lot of translators, a lot of translators. So this is going to be extremely unpopular within the EU circles. Anyway, that's a conspiracy theory. Let me hop over to questions. And tell me, has anyone ordered any of the new Apple stuff? I think I'm going to order the new AirPods, because I've got these and the right one has started to buzz, and I don't think there's much I can do about it. So I think I might get the AirPods, and I'm going to get the new iPhone 17 Pro. I think it's the 17, for video stuff in particular, because I'm working on I want to say a 14. I don't even know. See, this is a big problem here. Increasingly, people don't care about the new iPhone, because the incremental increase each time is minimal. So I don't even know which one I have, and I'm sure that's the same for many, many people. I think I have a 14, but I'll probably upgrade to the 17. But we'll see how it goes. Right, no questions. I wanted to pull this up. My business partner sent this to me earlier. It's from a Tech Policy Press. I don't know what Tech Policy Press is, but it's from some kind of think tank by the look of it. But I think it's a really interesting discussion of Google's position right now vis-a-vis artificial intelligence. So I wanted to read it in full and give my thoughts on it. I don't think it's 100% right, but I think it's very close to the mark. So what differentiates Google and is its existing ecostructure of products, which have become infrastructural for most consumers. ChatGPT loses at least $2 for every $1 it spends, and as Brian Merchant wrote for AI Now, the company fails to have a discernible or profitable business model. True, they are burning money. Not uncommon for new startups though, so we have to keep that in mind. Now, as AI increasingly becomes more expensive to integrate into products, firms who are best positioned to succeed are those who have alternative revenue streams to offset costs, profit off high compute costs, or those who can easily integrate AI into their existing product workflow. So for example, profiting off high compute costs, that's why NVIDIA are doing very well. There's also why Oracle just signed a huge deal with OpenAI, and Larry Ellison became the richest person on earth, is because these are companies that provide AI services or compute. Google is able to take capital intensive risks on AI because of its ongoing search monopoly profits. This is what I want to come back to. By owning Google Cloud, Google can discount the cost of running its own models, true. And finally, Google can integrate AI into all of its existing products, tapping into a user base of billions, true. So they can add it to Gmail, they can add it to other products they have, Android. In fact, a Google executive testified in this case that Google has already integrated generative AI into every single one of Google's products, again giving the company an impossibly strong upper hand on those AI startups listed as competition. Sounds pretty good. And when people talk about who's going to win AI, Google are a really strong contender, because they do have, they're a huge company, they have cash, they have people like Demis Hassabis, who we're going to be talking about in a moment, and Gemini's a good model. Gemini, interestingly, just hit #1 in the App Store yesterday, so it's above ChatGPT. You can download the Gemini app, and people have realized, like, oh, Google's quite good. Google AI is really good. People are mainly downloading it because of Nano Banana, which is part of the Flash 2.5 model. Yeah. So Nano Banana is the image generation software. So people are mainly getting it for that. That doesn't matter. They are getting Google Gemini onto their telephones for the first time. This has not happened before. It's always been ChatGPT. So people are realizing Google are in a good position. Google have great tech. Gemini is a solid model. They have deep pockets. They have cloud infrastructure, and then they have products that they can plug it into. All true. But the thing that I want to come back to is Google is able to take capital intensive risks on AI because of its ongoing search monopoly profits. Yes, this is where Google's money comes from. Google is not a tech company. Google is an advertising company. And I've talked about this previously in lives. Google's money comes from search revenue. It comes from giving adverts at the top of a search result. That is where I think 70% of their revenue comes from. And it is at a very high profit margin, like 70, 80% profit margin. That's where all of their cash comes from. And they make an immense amount of money. I'm going to have to look this up. I think it's 125. So Google revenue. I don't want to get this wrong. 350 billion in 2024. Yep. Google's revenue was $350 billion. So that largely comes from advertising, because they are an advertising company. They're not a tech company. They make money from ads. So yes, they have a huge, a bunch of revenue coming in because, where is it? AI, because of its ongoing search monopoly profits, 100%. However, that is getting eaten into by artificial intelligence. So they are in a very weird position right now where their cash cow, where they make their money, is going to be destroyed eventually by artificial intelligence. The way that we are accessing information is shifting from search to generation. It is a paradigm shift in how we access information. In the same way that we used to go to the library or own Encyclopedia Britannica, we used to access information through books, and then we moved to accessing it through the internet via search. We are having a similar shift where we're going to be moving away from search into generative AI. Google have a huge ship to turn around. They are making $350 billion from search right now. They need to pivot to that whole gigantic enterprise and all of those people and all of those teams and all of those technologies so that they can come into a new revenue stream, which is going to be based on generative AI. So their savior is also the thing that is going to eat them alive. Can they do it? Yeah, probably. Google are in a good position. They have high cash reserves. They have really good people on their team. They have good technologies. They are not burying their head in the sand like Apple are, but instead they are building really good models. They were the ones who bought DeepMind years and years ago because they were like, we need to get on with, we need to look into this AI thing. So they are leading the charge, but they need to replace a huge amount of revenue. A huge amount of revenue at a very high margin needs to be replaced by something that is new. Something that has not proven to have revenue models in place. Now, all of the large AI companies will probably add advertising into their generative because this is where the cash is, but nobody has successfully done that yet. So if Google is going to move in that direction, which they are, they're doing AI overviews, they have a new AI tab in their Google search, and they're pushing people towards the Gemini app to access information instead of search. They are going to have to work out how to monetize that to the same extent as their current search revenues. And that is not impossible, but it is a very large ship to turn. And they have a lot of momentum in one direction. And you need to cannibalize your own business to move to the new form of business. Whether or not an incumbent can do that, we don't know. Or maybe we're going to see creative destruction where they get eaten, they get destroyed by new people who are built from the ground up for generative AI, and they don't have all this baggage of search. This is all extremely speculative, but I just wanted to point out that this kind of article, this paper, which is extremely bullish, extremely positive on Google, needs to take into account the fact that they have a lot of changes to make, and they need to basically dismantle a highly profitable business model and replace it with something that is speculative, and that's going to be difficult. Not impossible, but extremely, extremely difficult. People don't want to be constantly sold stuff. That's the attraction of ChatGPT. 100%. That's why people are moving from search over to ChatGPT generation, because there aren't adverts. Unfortunately, this means that people aren't clicking on websites anymore. And Google's actually helping this as well, because they're adding AI overviews, which leads us down the road of the zero-click internet. We're not clicking on a website, so the website owners don't make money from the traffic, either through running ads or through affiliate links or through selling their own products. What's going to happen, and there's no way this is not going to happen, is we are going to get ads in ChatGPT. We're going to get ads inside Gemini. We'll get ads inside Claude. Maybe not Claude. Probably Claude. They're going to move the ad ecosystem inside of where the eyeballs are. Because if you have, I think ChatGPT has about 700 million users. If you have that many people, there's a huge amount of money that can be tapped into from advertising revenue. Now, what they'll probably do, unless they're greedy, what they'll probably do to start is serve up ads inside of ChatGPT for free users. So if you are on the free plan, you'll get ads. If you're on the paid plan, you will not get ads. Nice, basic, simple model that people understand. That would be the case for a few years. The free users will grumble like, but they'll be like, okay, well, fine, I'm getting it for free. In the same way that we do with Google. We're like, well, we don't pay for Google, so okay, fine, they can show me ads. We get used to it. And then after a couple of years, they'll realize like, oh no, we can do what, Disney Plus and Amazon Prime do. We can get a membership and we can show adverts. We can make money. We can make money both ways. So that's what a lot of the streaming companies are doing now, because they want to squeeze more money out. So even though I pay for Amazon Prime, I get shown adverts on Amazon Prime, which is annoying and upsetting, but what am I going to do? And consumers basically get used to these things, and it gets worse and worse as a user experience, but it allows these companies to make more money. We'll see something like that very likely with OpenAI and ChatGPT. So first, adverts coming for free users, probably in the next year. There's too much money left on the table for them to ignore. And then later down the line, oh, we're going to slip some ads into premium, would be my guess. Scrolling through some questions. Let me have water while I'm looking at questions. I have a terrible habit of drinking water mid-question, which is the wrong thing to do. What's the best one to help software programming? So for coding, probably Claude Code, and Claude as a model is very good at code. Claude, you can use it inside Cursor, or you can use Claude Code, and it is the underlying model that's used inside of Lovable and some other vibe coding tools. I don't know what Bolt and Base 44 use, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Claude. Claude right now is probably the best for coding. So yeah, I'd go for that for software programming. What do you think about Seed Dream 4? It's great. I was playing around with it over the weekend, and it's a really good model. I think the Chinese models, they bubble up every once in a while because they keep beating the Western models, but then people kind of go back to the Western models by default. I'd really like to see a Chinese model, whether it's a large language model like DeepSeek or an image model like Seedream, kind of become just the de facto usage, just the one that we use. But we haven't seen that yet. Instead, these Chinese models pop up. We're like, oh, this is really good. Wow, it's better than ChatGPT. Wow, it's better than Midjourney. And then the popular interest kind of dies down. I don't know if Seedream is going to be the one that kind of breaks through. I think it's going to be tricky now that Google have Nano Banana, because I think they're both very, very good. And most people will find it easier to access Nano Banana because you can now download Gemini. In fact, Gemini is the #1 app on the App Store right now for this reason. And it's just a bit easier to access, to get into than Seedream. But I think it's a very good model, extremely good. Andrew says, hey Kyle, how do you combat the point of when you go from excitement to roadblock when building? Oh, that's a good question. So at the moment, I'm doing another live stream. I do it immediately after the news live stream where I am building a application in public. I'm using Lovable. I'm going to do the whole project on Lovable. I won't use Cursor for this one. Reason being, I want to show people that it's doable and that it is relatively easy to do, and it doesn't require you to be a tech genius. So I'm using Lovable. So as you say, there's always that first excitement, especially when you've put in your first prompt and it builds something magic and it looks great and your ideas come into life, and it truly is magical. Then you start to build in the back end authentication, kind of like the stuff you need to make an application actually work, and you run into problems, you run into roadblocks, you run into issues. It's kind of part and parcel of it. There are a bunch of ways to deal with those roadblocks, and I think the more that you code, the more that you vibe code, you learn the different ways that you can deal with the problems. So when I started doing the live, so I'm on day 11. I'm now day 11 out of 30 of the live stream. But the day 2 and day 3, I basically ran into roadblocks. So I had 2 hours of live stream of me just like, bloody thing, like, come on, work. But it was useful because I got to talk about the different ways that you can punch your way through roadblocks. So the first one is the one that I recommend not doing, is just saying to the AI, do it better. Do it again, fix it. It doesn't really work. I will sometimes let it try to self-fix, maximum 2 or 3 times. Beyond that, it's just going to be making spaghetti code. So I'd prefer to roll back. So unfortunately, you can't just say, do it again, but better. The next kind of level up is getting the console code from Inspector. So if you're in Chrome, you right click anywhere, you go to Inspector, then you click on console, and you can see the actual error codes, what's actually going wrong. Copy all of that, paste it into Lovable or Cursor or whatever it is, and say, hey, this is what's happening, please diagnose it. Sometimes that fixes it. Third is to do the same thing, but take that information out to Claude. So going over to the Claude chatbot and say, hey, this is what I'm building, this is where I'm stuck, describe the problem, show screenshots, give it the error codes, give it the console from Chrome, etc., and then say to Claude, give me 3 potential give me 3 potential diagnoses and work out which is going to be the most likely and give me a fix. And then I take that information back into my vibe coding tool. So that's a nice way to get a little bit of distance, because the vibe coding tools would tend to just go straight into the fix, whereas if you take it out to Claude, you can have a discussion back and forward. So that works really well. And then there's other fixes. Obviously, there's going in and checking the code yourself. That depends on having some coding proficiency. Asking other people to help, that requires money or requires some kind of tech partner. But there are ways to fix these things for sure. But it's kind of part of the process. I think the more you do vibe coding, or the more you do more you do coding and building, the more you realize how to structure projects and how to work through these blocks as well. And it just becomes part of the process, unfortunately. It'd be a bit boring if it just one-shotted everything. Good, but a bit boring. So I think, how do you go from excitement to roadblock? Or how do you combat it? Just push through. I'm very stubborn though. Like these live streams I'm doing, as I mentioned at the beginning of this live, YouTube has finally started to spike up. Like it's been going flat, bam. Because I've been told YouTube rewards consistency. So all the YouTubers I talk to, they say, no, you just have to keep going. You need to grind your way to 10,000, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be horrible. But then once you get to 10,000 subscribers, you can go shooting up. That requires basically months and months and months of doing work without any results. And thankfully, there's something about my brain which is okay with that. Just grinding against it. And it's the same with building. You're going to hit problems and you just have to keep going. One good thing is that most people don't. Most people bounce off, and that's good for us, people who do go ahead and push through. Is DeepSeek dangerous? No, I don't think so. In what sense? Because it's Chinese? No, DeepSeek, well, it depends what you're using it for. So a lot of people have used DeepSeek because it's open source. You can deploy it yourself, which means you deploy it on your own server or your own computer. So it's not connected to the Chinese servers. It's not connected to the Chinese government, if that's your concern. So you can do it locally, which is fantastic. Lots of the Chinese models, most of the Chinese models are open source, which is really cool. I've shot videos about why this is. It isn't purely out of the generosity of their hearts. It's a form of soft power, which is how China does diplomacy, by giving away really valuable stuff. Getting people used to using those ecosystems is an incredibly powerful thing to do. Also, they'll have monetization later down the road, and lots of the Chinese AI companies, they have something called a golden share. So the government has a stake in those companies, which means the government is intertwined with their kind of financial and their future success, which in turn means that getting financial support is a lot easier. They don't need to compete tooth and nail like they do in Silicon Valley for cash, because the Chinese government can help. They have quite a lot of money, and unlike in the West, China very early on decided this is strategically important, and we're gonna put a lot of resources behind this, which is very different to in the UK, where they're like, we think AI is important, and that's why we're giving £1 million to such and such. No. China's like, no, this is what we're doing now, and then they're just pouring billions into it. This is no longer a £1 million game. We're in the billions and trillions now. So I think, what was I talking about? Is DeepSeek dangerous? No, but I am biased. I speak Mandarin Chinese. I've lived in China, so don't trust me. I'm an enemy agent. Andrew, awesome, thank you, awesome. D4E, do you know what AI interviews are? Yeah. Do you know how AI job interviews? Yeah, I know a few people who've done AI job interviews, and they were quite upset to do them because it feels very dehumanizing. I've never done an AI job interview. I've never really done job interviews though, so I'm the wrong person to ask on this. I'm just trying to think who talks about AI and employment. There must be people. It's not really my wheelhouse. I generally talk about AI for the use of starting your own business and growing businesses. But there are definitely AI job interviews out there. I think it's a bit of a weird concept, honestly. I see Kathy says, moved over from TikTok to give you more viewership over here. Thank you. And you get me in 4K, and you'll be able to see the screen, which I'll bring up in a minute. It's much better. Awesome. So I want to talk about Demis Hassabis. So he gave a talk, very cool. He gave a talk in the Odeon? Yeah, the Odeon of Herodes Atticus. I'm not even going to try. With the Greek Prime Minister, talking about artificial intelligence. So Demis runs the DeepMind, Google DeepMind Lab. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking out the AlphaGo documentary. It is free over on, I guess, the DeepSeek channel. So AlphaGo, yep, DeepMind. Oops.
It's a really nice quote.
Excuse me. So on the DeepMind channel, they have the whole movie, and it's an hour and a half long, and it's really, really good. It's about DeepMind, gosh, this was a few years ago, winning the game of Go against Lee Sedol, who is, well, still is, I think, a grandmaster of Go. Go was always considered, well, not always. It used to be chess. It used to be a computer will never beat anyone in chess, and then it did. And that was Kasparov and Deep Blue, the computer which beat Kasparov. So the goalposts got shifted, and this always happens in artificial intelligence too. Oh, well, an AI, a computer will never beat anyone in Go. Go is too complex. So DeepMind and Demis Hassabis, as the head of their team, went ahead and built a new system. Just trying to find Demis. He's here somewhere. And there he is. Wow, he's very young looking. Is that him? Yeah, that is him. Went ahead and built this AlphaGo machine and won against Lee Sedol. And yes, this is a documentary about a bunch of engineers building a computer to play a game, but it is a gripping documentary. It's really, really interesting, especially when they realize the computer's going to win. Because initially, they're jubilant because all of their work is paid off and what they've built is going to beat a grandmaster in Go. And so they're like, oh, we've spent years doing this and we're going to win, and it's amazing, and all of our hard work is paid off. And that turns very quickly to sadness and almost horror, because a human at the top of their mental game is being beaten by a machine. So even the people who built the machine understand what is happening and understand that, oh God, what what have we done? So it's a fascinating documentary. So I highly recommend watching that. So that is a total totally not related to this. So Google's top AI scientist, so this is Demis Hassabis, says learning how to learn will be next generation's most needed skill. So Athens, a top Google scientist and 2024 Nobel laureate, just a small Nobel Prize on the way, said Friday that the most important skill for the next generation will be learning how to learn. Thank you. To keep pace with change as artificial intelligence transforms education and the workplace. Speaking at an ancient Roman theatre at the foot of the Acropolis, so cool, in Athens, Demis Hassabis, CEO of Google's DeepMind, said rapid technological change demands a new approach to learning and skill development. Preach. Thank you. It's very hard to predict the future. 10 years from now in normal cases. It's even harder today given how fast AI is changing, even week by week, Hassabis told the audience. The only thing you can say for certain is that huge change is coming. The neuroscientist and former chess prodigy, he's quite smart, said artificial general intelligence, AGI, a futuristic vision of machines that are as broadly smart as humans, or at least can do many things as well as humans can, could arrive within a decade. Now, interestingly, this is a very different timeline to what a lot of the other companies are talking about, especially OpenAI, Musk. They're talking about within a couple of years. Remember, they are also drumming up investment, so we have to take that into account. So Sam Altman needs to keep beating the drum of AGI in order to keep getting investment, in order to keep growing ChatGPT. Demis Hassabis does not have as many constraints because he's working for Google. And Google, as we've just talked about, have deep pockets. They can fund this development. So he's kind of allowed to have longer timelines on this, and he can talk about those longer timelines. This, he said, will bring dramatic advances and a possible future of radical abundance, despite acknowledged risks. Hassabis emphasized the need for meta skills, such as understanding how to learn, and optimizing one's approach to new subjects alongside traditional disciplines like maths, science, and humanities. One thing we'll know for sure is you're going to have to continually learn throughout your career. Unless people... Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, joined Hassabis at the Athens event after discussing ways to expand AI use in government services. Mitsotakis warned that the continued growth of huge tech companies could create global financial inequality. Yes, big problem. Unless people actually see benefits, personal benefits to this AI revolution, they will tend to become very skeptical, he said. This is the Prime Minister. And if they see obscene wealth being created within very few companies, this is a recipe for significant social unrest. 100%. So, very cool talk, and Hassabis talking about some very important and I think very, very real issues. We need to be agile. We do not know what is coming. So people are always asking me, like, what should I learn? What skills should I learn? And what's the best degree to do? We don't know. What area should I go into with my work? We don't know. So we need to be flexible because we don't know how AI is going to affect different industries and different areas of knowledge. We just know that a lot of change is happening, and it's hard to tell what is going to affect the most. So what you need to be doing is constantly staying on your feet and learning. The one thing that I'm always emphasizing, and banging it like a broken drum, is having control of your own income, of your own work, and of your own freedom is increasingly important, because we cannot rely on our companies to exist, the companies that we work for. So if you have a 9-to-5 job in what you think is an incredibly cushy company, if that company falls behind because they don't take AI seriously, then you are suddenly out on your ass and you don't have that cushy 9-to-5 job. And this is coming from big companies like the McKinseys of the world, the big banks of the world, they're going to get disrupted. So a lot of people are going to be left holding the bag on that if these companies do not adapt. If you run your own business, if you have some form or portion of your income coming from something that you do yourself, then at least you have flexibility. You have the ability to change depending on what is coming at you. Whereas if you work for an organization, you kind of need to, well, you're waiting to see what they do. And even worse, there are some companies who are deciding now, no, we're not touching AI. And it means that they're not training their staff members in how to use AI, which means those companies are going to go down in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe less. And all the people who are working for those companies are going to be left without the skills that are needed at other companies, or without the skills that are required to live in that world that's going to be very, very AI integrated. So, I mean, you guys, I'm preaching to the choir. If you're watching me, if your social media feed involves people like me talking about AI, you're well ahead of the curve already, well ahead of the curve. But what I would recommend as an action is try to start something yourself, some kind of business. It could be consulting, it could be advisory, it could be doing workshops, it could be building a small SaaS using artificial intelligence, software as a service. But try to be ahead of this wave and in control of what's going on for yourself. It doesn't mean quit your job. It just means have something on the side which you are also working on. That right now is probably the safe play. It requires more work, but it's also a time where a lot of opportunity is available because there's a lot of disruption. And if you're an entrepreneur, disruption is good because that means there's a lot of opportunities. Drew says, I did the same. So it looks like 2 of you have come over from the TikTok over to the YouTube. I highly recommend it for anyone on TikTok because you can see what I'm seeing on screen as well. So actually connected to this, there's a guide from the... Oh, that's good timing. A guide from The Guardian, a newspaper in the UK, called... It's about life skills for AI. So they released this a day after the Demis Hassabis talk. So that's good timing for them. I'm going to read this and have a look at this in a moment after checking some questions. Who would you say are the individuals ahead of the curve? Do you mean, I guess, individuals? Anyone who's watching this right now, as I said, if you're watching a British nerd on a Monday morning talk about artificial intelligence, you are ahead of the curve. Most people are on social media right now watching absolute nonsense. Sorry, that makes it sound like I'm not absolute nonsense. Most people are watching, I don't know, dances or Fortnite videos or funny cat videos. You are watching something about artificial intelligence. Your algorithm has honed in on you as somebody who is interested in this topic. That means you are well ahead of most of the people out there. I do workshops for businesses and charities as well. I do charities for free and I charge businesses a couple of $100 or a couple of £100 an hour. A couple of thousand, about £2,000 an hour to give them workshops. What I see in both charities and businesses and out there in general public is the level of AI knowledge and the level of AI usage is still very low. People are being exposed to it. People have started to use ChatGPT, which is different to last year. But it's still very much a Google replacement. It's still very much of a naive usage. Some people don't even know that AI can give you incorrect results, which is terrifying. So the general level of usage is very, very low. So if you are watching this, if you are watching any kind of content creator talking about artificial intelligence, chances are you know a lot more than the general public. However, because you are in this bubble, this sphere of people who are talking about this stuff, you might think your knowledge is not so high because you see other people talking about it and you're like, oh, everyone knows this. I actually met Nate B. Jones, the guy with big beard, super smart guy, American dude. I met him in Stockholm 2 weeks ago. And for me, he's like the guy who knows everything. So I was like, oh, I was fanboying to Nate B. Jones when I met him. But you have to remember that we are in this tiny, tiny minority compared to the rest of the public. And that's a really good opportunity if you are ahead of the curve because you can teach people within your industry and you can make very good money doing that. So I actually run a cohort teaching people how to teach. So I license them my workshop materials and they go off and give my workshops and they charge thousands of pounds or thousands of dollars per hour because there's a huge demand for this kind of stuff. So ahead of the curve is you guys. Honestly, anyone who's watching this, you are ahead of the curve. So Grace, you said, I feel knowledge is mainly surface level versus engineering and business expertise. Yep, 100%. So what we need right now are people who, you don't need to be an engineer. So there's a story I like to tell. I work with a charity. Well, I work with a number of charities, but one of the charities I work with in London, they got given some money and they got given free training packages by one of the big four advisory companies. I won't name them, but they were given, I don't know, a couple of 100,000 plus a number of sessions with business experts. And one of the experts was an AI expert. And he came in and he talked to them about large language models, about neural networks, about gradient descent, about backpropagation. He came and talked to them about how artificial intelligence and generative AI works under the hood. And these executives who ran this charity did not need to know that stuff. And they left that talk more confused about AI than when they went in. So I went in, I don't know, a few weeks later, and I noticed that there's like hesitancy, like lots of people thinking, no, AI is very technical, it's very difficult. It's because this guy who had 2 PhDs and had written a textbook about machine learning had taught them the basics. And it taught them how, not what they should be using it for. So I had to break through that and I said to them, look, can you use WhatsApp? Yeah, we can use WhatsApp. Cool, you can use ChatGPT. And then basically got them into ChatGPT, which this guy hadn't bothered doing. I got them into ChatGPT and showed them this is how you talk to it. You literally have a chat with it, hence ChatGPT. And you could see like the relief on people's faces, like, oh, what? You can, what? You just type and it answers and it's like having a chat? Yeah. And then I showed them voice mode. It's like, oh God, you can just talk to it? Yeah. The level of knowledge is very low out there. And what you can do as somebody who trains, as somebody who helps, is mainly you're helping people work through mental barriers and psychological barriers against usage. And then you give them a basic prompt engineering framework. So I give them Risen, for example, and I walk them through how they do that step by step. And that means that even people who use ChatGPT casually, they also get something because it can increase their efficiency. And then you answer a few questions that's specific to their particular niche. So what you can do is somebody who has niche industry and business experience, you can help be a translator. You can bridge between the world of artificial intelligence and the world of whoever you are talking to. So I mainly talk to marketing companies or marketing teams within large companies because digital marketing is my background. However, I have other people, facilitators who teach in the education sector. So they are very good at talking to teachers, for example. Or I have people who work in the real estate sector. They go and talk to realtors, estate agents. And they can speak the language, use the metaphors, the stories, etc. to explain why this technology is important. That's more important than being able to explain the engineering behind it, because most people do not need to know. In the same way that to use the internet, we don't need to know what a URL is. Like, you don't need to know what that stands for, and we still use the internet every single day. It doesn't matter. So yes, learning the engineering, learning how to create these things, really cool, but you need a machine learning degree. You probably need a PhD. It's like high level. Most of the value that we can add to the market is not at that level. It's not at the research or the engineering level. It's at helping people to use this in daily life, because people still really, really need help with that. Ryan, digital nomad. I'm ahead of the curve, but losing the lead because I'm lost on ideas and I can implement any ideas. I'm in tech, specifically tech support, leading the way with AI in knowledge, database, and customers. Is the problem not enough ideas or too many ideas? So I think ideas are one thing, but with entrepreneurship, it's mainly about implementation. And this is why vibe coding tools are really cool, because for the last few decades, whenever I went to entrepreneur events or networking events, there'd always be ideas people, people who have lots of ideas, but they didn't have the technical ability to turn them into a reality. Now with vibe coding, with something like Lovable or Bolt or Replete or Base 44, whatever, you can now get your idea out of your head and start to build a basic prototype version of it. You can build an MVP, a minimum viability product. You can take it beyond, but it means that anyone can take that idea and start to implement it into something. And what happens very quickly is you realize that ideas are kind of cheap, honestly. Ideas are easy. It's getting them into a working form that is difficult. So if you have lots of ideas, start to build them. Start to go into Lovable and turn them into something that is real. And you can very quickly see if that idea is worthwhile. You will either see it yourself. This happens to me a lot. I'll have a great idea and I'll go and start building it up. And then I realize once it's real and concrete and I'm looking at it, I'm like, no, that's not very useful, is it? And I'll kill the project. And that's fine because I can do it quickly after an hour or two. Whereas previously I'd have to get investment, or I'd have to get an engineer, or I'd have to code it myself, and that adds friction. Or you get to a point where you start to build and you're like, okay, this kind of looks interesting, and then you can get it into the hands of other people quickly, and that allows you to get feedback and start to realize whether or not there's something of value in what you were building. So I would say, if you have lots of ideas, just start building and shipping, and document it. Put it on social media, what you're doing. Show your journey. There's a guy called yoniman.mp4 on Instagram. That's what he's been doing, and it's been a really, really interesting journey to follow. If you don't have any ideas, then start with a problem that customers have. So this is where most people go wrong. They will basically they'll build a solution to a problem that doesn't exist, and then be surprised when they go to market and nobody cares. So find an actual problem that people are having. Lots of people like to look on Reddit. This is another good reason to build an audience, because once you build an audience in a niche, you can just ask what people have difficulties with, or you can kind of pitch basic ideas and see which ones people are most receptive to. But once you've identified a problem, again, go ahead and build something fast, an MVP using a vibe coding tool, so you can see whether or not there's anything of value. So this is why AI is so exciting for entrepreneurship, is that it just gives us this speed. We can build something very, very quickly. There was a tweet by Greg Eisenberg, which I saw, it was a couple of months ago, but he was saying, in their organization, their business, they used to have a dedicated note taker, somebody who is in every meeting is sitting there writing down notes about who's going to do what after the meeting. What they have now is a dedicated vibe coder. So the executives or the leaders will be talking about ideas like, oh, we could do this, we could do that, oh, we could build this. And they have a little vibe coder who's sitting there and it's just like putting something together, and then able to show them a prototype of the ideas that they're tossing around. So it doesn't become here's all the ideas we could implement, and then afterwards building it offline and having more meetings, committees. Instead, it's, I've got an idea, okay, here it is. This is what it looks like. Here's a concrete form of it, which has been vibe coded in 10 minutes while we're still in the meeting. It's a really, really cool tool. So if you haven't checked out Lovable, Bolt, Replete, Cursor, etc., I would highly recommend. After this, so we're coming to the end of this stream, I'm going to hop on and be building in public with Bolt. Not Bolt, excuse me, with Lovable. And it's day 11 of 30 of building an app in public from scratch and hopefully launching it. So hop on that as well. Does no code format based on predictable templated code blocks that can be more easily hacked? It can be, the potential security risks are from not putting the back end in place properly, not necessarily the predictable templated code blocks. And here's the dirty little secret: a lot of people use templated code blocks anyway. They just get them from Stack Overflow. So that's been happening for a long time in code. You're not going to handcraft every single line of code, because generally there's no need to. If you need a module or a function and somebody's already built it before, you're going to go and get that piece of code anyway from some kind of repository on GitHub, or look for answers on Stack Overflow. So the AIs have just learned to do the same, and they are using those same templated blocks of code as a coder would go and find. Now, obviously, if you can code, if you know Python, for example, that gives you more flexibility in your usage. But I wouldn't worry too much about templated blocks of code, because that's kind of what is used already. People borrow code all the time, and that's what open source is as well. Oh, so many questions. But I do need to hop off because I'm going to be heading... Yeah, for safety and accuracy, domain expertise is extremely important with AI, 100%, Nate. What we bring to the table is our ability to tell whether an AI answer is correct or not. So a lot of people use AI in a very naive way, which is they will just plug in some information, get an answer, copy and paste that into whatever, their document or their school report, without any critical faculty. What we bring to the table is the ability to, one, ask the right questions of the AI and to have a conversation back and forward to increase the quality of the output. And then two, be able to look at that output and think, well, that's a load of rubbish. That comes from our domain expertise in whatever our particular domain expertise is. Like for me, it's marketing. So if I'm creating, let's say, some copywriting for a sales page, I'm able to 100% use Claude as a tool, go back and forward, work out the structure, have a conversation with it as a co-writer, and then it will give me a draft. But I am then able to look at that draft and think, well, this bit's crap. This bit's quite good. This bit needs some work, but that comes from domain expertise. So when working together, incredibly powerful. Ooh, so many questions. But I do need to finish this up. Sound advice. Cool, Ryan. I hope that's helpful. Where can we watch you build the app? I'll be back on TikTok in a few minutes and on YouTube. I would highly recommend YouTube though, because you can see my screen properly. You'll be able to see it on TikTok, but it's my back camera and it's not as good. On YouTube, you'll be able to see 4K. It's a lot nicer looking. Because I'm leaving here. Yeah, I'll leave in a minute. So I have a few other pieces of news. I'm going to bump them for tomorrow because we've already gone for an hour, and so I will cover them tomorrow. Yep, no problem. Unless, you know, GPT-6 comes out today, but it's unlikely. Right, I'm going to finish up this stream. So I'm going to be hopping onto the secondary stream in just a moment over on YouTube and TikTok, where I'm building an app in public. It's day 11 out of 30. I'm spending 1 hour per day building from scratch to hopefully launching and generating revenue by the end of the 30 days. We are approaching the halfway point now, so I need to get a move on. I'm building in Lovable, and I want to show that anyone can do this basically and walk you through the process. And you're seeing the problems, you're seeing the successes, you're seeing absolutely everything, including, you know, some days where absolutely nothing gets done, and that's just part of the process. I am going to hop over to that shortly, so join me there. Also, there is a newsletter which comes out every single day. You can find the link in the bio, and it basically has a summary of everything that's been discussed on the live, all of the news, all of the updates, the questions that have been asked in the audience as well. We'll get a written summary in there, so make sure you check that out. That's totally free, comes out every single day. And subscribe on my YouTube channel. Let me have a look. As I mentioned earlier, YouTube is kicking off, which is exciting. Let me put it up. So, we're about to hit 4,000 subscribers. Yesterday we added 143 subscribers in one day. The day before was 189 subscribers. So it's moving, which is really, really cool, because good God, it's a slog building up a YouTube channel. I've been at it since September. No, that's not September. I've been at it for nearly 2 months, and we are very slowly making our way to 10,000. So thank you for anyone on TikTok or YouTube who has subscribed on YouTube, because it really, really helps. Awesome. Thank you, guys. I will finish up the stream and I will see you on the other stream. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow for more AI news and updates. Cheers.